Hello, I am Sharon Pinder, President and CEO of the Capital Region Minority Supply Development Council and operator of the Virginia Minority Business Development Agency Business Center, the only one of its kind in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and the first one in the history of MBDA and its grants. As an organization, the Capital Region Minority Supply Development Council is one of 23 affiliates of the National Minority Supply Development Council, and our mission is to certify, connect, develop, and advocate for minority businesses. This year is an incredible year for us because we're celebrating, wait for it, 50 years of advocating, connecting our corporate members with well-established minority business firms. This month, and we're kind of winding down this month, and you always save the best for last. It is National Financial Literacy Month, and we're sitting down. We have sat down actually with some very special guests this month to discuss financial literacy. We're calling it Mind Your Money. Today, we're having a conversation with Celandra Deane-Bess, Senior Vice President of PNC Bank and a certified financial planner who has been involved with financial planning for a number of years. And you won't believe it when you see the young lady. She looks like she just got out of college yesterday. You'll hear in a moment how she brings her experience, like don't be fooled by the good looks, and knowledge that we need for this very important conversation. Mind your money. But before we get started with the conversation, let's take some time to recognize our premier corporate sponsors. Our title sponsors: Exelon, BGE and Exelon Company, Pepco and Exelon Company, Capital One, AMCUS, one of our premier Corporate Plus MBEs, and SB and Company, another one of our premier minority businesses. And of course, the MBDA Business Center is a premier sponsor. Before we bring up Celandra, let me just tell you a little bit about her. Again, I said she's Senior Vice President for PNC's Private Bank, oversees a team of professionals to achieve the highest level of client satisfaction to ensure that our team meets and exceeds client expectations. Through Celandra's leadership and commitment, she helps ensure that the client benefits from a full complement of investment, trust, financial planning, and private banking services to help them achieve their financial goals. As I share, she's a certified financial planner. She'll tell us about that. She's an active member of the community through Financial Planning Association and the National Black MBA Association. She's also a member of the Wharton Club of DC, Penn Alumni Club, and Chicago Club of DC. Please help me welcome Celandra to our HotChat podcast.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderfully. I'm pleased to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, it is our pleasure. Trust and believe that it is. But before we get started, because there's a lot of questions we want to ask about what you're doing. And, our audience are our corporate members, but we have a focus on our minority businesses. So we want them to kind of walk away with the conversation of, what the kind of support and services they can get from PNC, what PNC's commitment is to diversity, how that plays out in terms of some of the services they deliver and all those kinds of things. But I need to ask you a question about when you get old, when you say we must be some kind of kin. That Bess on the end of your name. Tell me, because I have some Bess in my family from North Carolina. But tell me, where do you originally hail from?
So, my maiden name is Deane. The Bess is my husband's name, and of course, his family is from South Carolina, Neesmith, South Carolina. So there's strong roots there. My family actually were immigrants from the Caribbean. They came over. My father came over to go to college, and he started at Livingstone College and then ultimately transferred to Howard University and spent essentially his entire life here in the DC region. Both at Howard, and then he spent most of his career at Children's Hospital before he started his own business, running his own medical laboratory.
Mm-hmm. So you were born in the DC area then?
Yes, yes. I'm one of the
Okay.
few native Washingtonians.
And Washingtonians are very proud when they can say that they're a nation, because most of them were, we migrated. But when you say that, native Washingtonian, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. But you know what, Celandra, and I just wanted to talk about you in just a moment, but you also have an impressive background. Where did you do your undergrad?
At Wharton's undergraduate business school
Mhm.
at University of
Mhm.
Pennsylvania,
Okay. And graduate, I think you get your MBA.
University of Chicago's Booth School of Business.
Okay. And so I know a conversation that comes up because I'm hearing this a lot. Like, you have friends who have children or grandchildren graduate from high school and they're looking at college.
Yes.
And the price tag of college is so astronomical. What do you tell people in terms of that selection and what you do? And so they aren't, one of the things I remember is the Obamas were paying off college loans when they went into the White House. And
Right.
so when you had this conversation about, just the expense of education, but it is still the ticket to freedom, do you not agree?
Well, I completely agree. I would say my parents just had enough money to ensure a good education for us. We didn't have much else, but education was really where they focused their funds.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that it is certainly worth making the sacrifice. But a lot of the passion I have for this industry, for this practice of financial literacy and financial planning, is because it takes a lot to be able to afford that education and still end up not completely broke, which
Mm-hmm.
education can easily do. I would say that though you have to stay focused. There's no question that a college education is valuable, but also take full advantage of the resources that are available to you. There are sometimes resources that you're just not aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of scholarship programs, lots of tools within your own retirement plan or your own home. There are different ways to use leverage. There are different ways to take advantage of a wide range of resources. And so I think the key is to have a plan. I always say with financial planning that a lot of people think it takes money to make money, but what I say is it takes time to make money. So if
And
you have a plan and you have time, you might actually end up better off than having a lot of money.
now I think you hit it. The resources, the plan, but to also understand the knowledge associated with it. So you're right. The critical conversations now is about educating your children, but it's also about not retiring broke,
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
And so what I think about is like I don't want to retire and think, well, I can't do that because I can't afford it. That kind of thing. And so to begin to think in terms of um, in your 20s or in your 30s that you really, the reality is that at some point in your life, if you don't strike it rich before then, that you want to, even if you don't want to work until retirement age, that you want to figure out how do you not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And so I kind of said remind me of the folks that all kind of walked out, the folks that decided that they just quit their jobs. Remember that? So I wonder, I'm hoping they had a nest egg, huh? So you kind of wonder what happened with those folks. I don't hear a lot of follow up, but nevertheless, have you always been the kind of that planner person? And why did you
Uh,
choose the industry that you're in?
that's a great question. So I would say yes, I have been a planner. I think, one of the things my father always used to say is if you fail to plan, plan to fail.
Mm,
And so I grew up with a very clear, sort of focus on how a plan can really make a difference in your life. So I am a big planner, but I would say I got passionate about this because, we didn't grow up with a lot of money. As I said,
mhm.
my parents pretty much spent all of their money on sending us to private school. But we didn't have much else. And so we were in a school where there were children who had
That
wealth,
means,
but
yeah.
we weren't them. And so I think as a child, I became fascinated with how to get access to wealth, what it means, what the whole financial system really means, because I understood that it was powerful. I just didn't understand how it worked. And so I sought out to get to the best business school I could get to. My parents told me early that they may not be able to afford, the best school. So if I'm not a great student, that's my best chance of success. And so I was very focused on my education. And so it did afford me a tremendous opportunity to get to Wharton's undergraduate business school. And I think that opened the door, of course, for lots of opportunities from there. I was also an Inroads intern. I don't know if you're familiar with Inroads.
Absolutely.
Inroads was very pivotal to me. I think it really changed
Showed you
my
the
approach.
possibilities.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. So I grew up a lot through Inroads, and so through the Inroads program, got access to my first job, which was in financial services, and so that's really just what continued to propel me. And I have to also give kudos to the late Mayor Marion Barry, because actually when I joined Inroads, the company that I started with only decided to establish a contract with Inroads because Mayor Marion Barry required minority youth to be employed, and so TI Craft was the company, a large New York company, but they would probably have never entertained an internship program for minority youth. So it was a tremendous opportunity for me, and I think transformed my career in corporate America.
See, Celandra, I am so glad we had this conversation, because that is so very, very important. Couple of questions. How many siblings do you have?
I have two sisters. I'm the oldest of three. I
Ah,
have
so you're
two
the
younger
bossy
sisters.
one.
Yeah.
And I love the fact you talked about your parents made that a focus of your life. It's three girls, and you're the oldest. And the fact that Inroads, because I remember sending my son to Inroads, and it made the decision in terms of his choice of college. But Inroads, I think, is a phenomenal program. And then say what you want about Marion Barry, he made it his business. He was pivotal in terms of a lot of lives, in terms of his youth programs, and just the workforce focus that he had. And so to hear the result of that having an impact on you, I think it's just a great, great story. I'm glad we're having this conversation.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And so was that experience then instrumental in your selection of Wharton at that time? You wanted to do kind of Ivy League. You were looking at that.
Well, I had selected Wharton before I joined Inroads,
Okay.
but where Inroads was helpful is where keeping me in, keeping me in
Mm,
financial services. My initial experience, I was very shy. I never worked in an environment like that. And I think, there was a pivotal point where my mom literally begged me not to drop out of the program, because I was thinking about a different career path and different things. And so I stuck with it. And I think that is really what kept me in both a corporate environment as well as in the financial services industry, which is, I'm sure is a very tough industry. And this, of course, was over 25 years ago. So tough place for a young minority Black woman.
that female,
So,
absolutely.
so
Hmm.
yeah, so but I'm glad that I stuck through it,
Hmm.
and I do think I would not have been able to survive it without the advocacy that Inroads helped bring to bear.
Okay. How any mentors that you can remember along the way, or do you have any now?
So I had I would say I have quite a few great mentors. I have been very fortunate in my career to have some exposure to diverse leaders. They weren't always my direct manager, but they were somewhere in the organization. And TIAA Craft, which is the first company I worked for, that they were my Inroads sponsoring company. At the time when I graduated, it had just hired the first Black CEO in the Fortune 500, which was Clifton Wharton. And so at that time, the company was just very focused on trying to get some minority leadership. And so there was a Black male, his name was Mark. He's since unfortunately passed away, Mark Wright, but he was very influential in, once I got through Inroads, making sure that I had an opportunity at TI Craft, and that my career, I stayed for 13 years after Inroads. So a lot of that was his advocacy, the connections he helped me make. And then there was another gentleman, Michael Rim, who was also very influential. So, and TI Craft really was the foundation of my corporate career. I learned, almost everything I know about running a business. I learned in those first 13 years of my career there.
Outstanding. Love this story. But let's talk about financial literacy and the importance of generational wealth, because I listened to this wonderful story about how your parents established this. They did this investment in the next generation, their children, kind of thing. What resources or tools do you see available that people can leverage at PNC Bank to help small businesses achieve those kind of goals?
So I'm very passionate about supporting small businesses, and I think PNC does an outstanding job of supporting small businesses. I do believe very strongly that entrepreneurship is the key to really closing the Black wealth gap. It plays a very significant role in generational wealth in minority communities as a whole. And so I do want to bring to our attention, right, there are a couple of really key areas of the PNC web that I want to bring your attention to. Obviously, minority supplier diversity is important. So as an organization, PNC is very passionate about supporting minority suppliers. But we also have an entire group who is dedicated to the success of minority businesses. And so if you hit pnc.com/minority business solutions, you can also find resources specifically for minority businesses on where to develop relationships, webinars on how to manage cash flow, how to find resources, essential partners to bring in and work with. So again, lots of tremendous tools, I would say, that are available if you check out that section of our site, both minority.
So again, you said it's pnc.com.
Minority /minority business.
pnc.com/minority business, and it has all these things there. That's really important. Let's go back to some of the things you're talking about. You said, what does it have there? And thank you for putting it on the screen. What does it have?
That's okay. So we have a variety of resources for minority businesses, and one of the some of them are in this sort of series of webinars and virtual seminars that can be attended on topics like cash flow management, ways to build bridges with partners, with vendors and suppliers. So really just different tools that can be taken advantage of within the bank and outside of the bank that minority businesses might need to take advantage of to a greater extent, or may not even be familiar with the types of programs that might be available in their communities specifically to help them.
And I like what you said, Celandra, in terms of if we want to get through or to really build generational wealth, entrepreneurship is the way. kind of thing. What role do you see? You talk about cash flow. You talk about well, we haven't talked about, but let's talk about the importance of the cash flow management. Let's talk about a little bit in terms of your experience and what you've seen in terms of the credit piece. Can you talk a little bit about those two areas?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say those obviously tend to be the most common challenges that business owners face, right? Managing
Mm-hmm.
cash flow, particularly here where we have a lot of government contractors, where you may have to expend a large amount before that you get paid for that, and managing sort of that in between cash flow, and that is where leverage lines of credit can be particularly valuable. But what I would say, because I lead the private bank, is that many business owners forget that there's also resources to them as an individual business owner, and sometimes those resources are their own line of credit on their own assets, that they can use and take advantage of to facilitate a variety of different things they may want to accomplish that they may not be able to achieve through the business. And we have seen some folks take advantage of their own personal wealth to facilitate a particular venture, until that venture can sort of survive on its
Do
own.
you have a example of something like that you're referencing?
So, for example, very often, sometimes you may have some resources set aside, your sort of your safety net or your investment account. But some you can lend if you're working with a private bank or you're working with uh, a private bank of any kind. You can sometimes borrow against your own assets, and so obviously you wouldn't want to utilize your secret stash. But
No.
if you believe that you can make a reasonable investment, then you can borrow against those assets. And depending on how those assets are invested, you may be able to get a larger advance rate than others. So again, these are resources that sometimes make sense, not always, but it's important for people to know that there are partners who can help business owners think through their own financial situation and how that may help their overall business objectives.
Talk a little bit about, because I guess one of the things you're taught is what you don't want to do is gamble in your own money, right? And so talk about how important, I think it plays into how important the relationship you have with your banker
So
is
that's a
part of that as
great
well.
question.
Mm-hmm.
That's an outstanding question because I think I didn't learn that until I came to PNC. As you know, as I mentioned before, I was mostly on the investment side when I started my career. Spent most of my career, in the mutual fund and investment world, and so I didn't really understand the world of banking until I came to
Got you.
PNC now almost 10 years ago. But I
Mm-hmm.
cannot emphasize enough the importance of having great relationships with your banker. It is probably one of the most powerful resources that can play a significant role in just opening up doors, opening up opportunities for a business owner. The things that we do for our clients, and really bend over backwards for, is really impacted based on the relationship we have. The better we know the business owner, the more we can do. So I would say, with hands down, and there are a lot more experienced corporate bankers out there, commercial bankers out there, but I would say without a question, a strong relationship with your banker is very important. And I think some people don't take it as seriously, but I would absolutely say it's an important, very important to take advantage of.
Yeah, and we often also say that your attorney and your CPA is part of that mix as well, and should be a part of your management team, particularly in any decisions or investments that you make. But it sounds like you are very well versed in the looking at assets and risk and wealth building and that kind of thing. What word of advice would you give, particularly our audience of minority businesses, relative to looking to the future? We have so much going on. We look at just potentially, when you look at potential projects associated with the infrastructure activity, and there is going to be a need for capital, because part of the issue of the distress around minority businesses, in particular businesses or minority businesses, is undercapitalization.
Right.
And so, what's your advice in terms of how do you prepare for the future? How do you begin to build those kind of assets? Any advice there?
So, great question. I would say, the first thing is to, what I would say, get your financial house in order.
Mm-hmm.
I think many of us sometimes trip into business, or we're so busy running the business, we don't really have the time to focus on sort of managing the financial piece of the business. But I would say that from very early, having good, sound accounting practices, to your point, having that CPA, ensuring that your financial house is in order is the most critical component to help, again, open up those doors, start those conversations that will make a difference. I would also say, stick with it, right? Again, sometimes entrepreneurship, I saw my own father struggle many, many a times. And I know the challenge and the roller coaster of the entrepreneurship process. And I think the first thing is to just remember that what you're doing is incredibly valuable, not only to your clients and your employees, but to the industry, to your legacy. The holding on to these businesses is important. I would also say partnerships are also huge. I've seen great success with partnerships, Black businesses supporting businesses, minority businesses supporting minority businesses, finding partnerships. I've seen some really creative solutions where we've seen businesses come together, especially here during the pandemic. So I would say, stay focused, bring in partners, and continue to keep your eyes focused on keeping your financial house in order.
Financial house in order, staying focused, and making sure that you select and maintain some partnerships and sustainability. And so, to just kind of keep at it. Is your dad still in business?
So unfortunately, my father passed away
Oh,
4 years ago.
okay,
So he is not still in business, but
certainly.
he did for many, many years until he became too ill to run the business.
Okay, what kind of business did he have?
He ran a medical laboratory. So he's a
Wow.
microbiologist by training,
Uh-huh.
and he led the medical laboratory at Children's Hospital for many years, and then decided to start his own with in a doctor's office building, in a medical building, running his own medical laboratory.
Okay. Well, listen, one thing I know for sure, he is smiling down and very proud of you. I know your parents were very proud of you and all of your accomplishments, and we are too. And so it's been a great, great conversation. Love the idea of getting to know you. Love, love, love all the things that you have accomplished. But what we just admire and appreciate more is that with all the things that you've accumulated over the years, that you are helping others. And so we certainly, certainly appreciate that. PNC Bank, ladies and gentlemen, Celandra Deane-Bess. I'm sure we got to check out the connection from PNC Bank. So awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Okay, as we kind of move forward, ladies and gentlemen, as I shared with you earlier, Thank you again, Celandra, for our great conversation. We heard it first on HotChat podcast. She is actually an impressive woman with an impressive background and an impressive story. Really, and thank you, Richie, from PNC Bank, for your engagement there. We look at PNC as one of our important partners, and we look forward to doing other things with them. But as I shared with you, it's an exciting year. It's our 50th anniversary. And I am glad. This is year 7 for me as leading this organization. So I'm glad to be a part of the story. But go to our website, www.crmsdc.org. You'll see the great handiwork of Nicole Miles, and all the things that we're doing as we continue with our podcast and other things. But if you missed any of our podcasts for the last year or so, oh wow, since 2022, we still have them up there. And we have talked to some folks. I'm telling you, if you missed it, you still have an opportunity to gain access to some really relative information. And I tell you, keep tuned to this dial, in the sense that as things continue to happen, particularly in the federal space, as that money's flowing down to the states, as we're preparing minority businesses to take advantage of this once in a lifetime billions of dollars that are coming down, follow us. Don't forget to like and follow and share this episode or any episode on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, or YouTube. Our marker is at CRMSDC, and you can subscribe to our channel. Please do, which you can find us on Apple, Google, and Spotify. And before I close, I'd like to tell you about some upcoming kind of things that are going on, but I also want to first do a quick thank you of some of our other corporate sponsors. So if we can see that. And you'll see, if you're just listening, I'll share a few of them: AARP, Allianz, AT&T, BAE Systems, BWI, Thurgood Marshall Airport, Dominion Energy, the Ellison Group, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, Hilton, Horseshoe, Leidos, Lockheed Martin, FRS, M&T Bank, the State of Maryland, Governor's Office of Small and Minority-Owned Business, Office of Small Minority and Women Business Affairs, Mass Mutual, McCormick, Northrop Grumman, Parsons, Piedmont, Prince George's Office of Central Services, DC Department of Small and Local Business Development, the City of Baltimore, if I have not said that, University of Maryland College Park, University of Maryland Global Campus, Washington Gas, Zillion Technology Zones, SAIC, Sodexo, Truist. Whew, lot of people interested in what we're doing because it's important. But before I close out, I want to say a special thank you to the team behind the scene. Did that rhyme? But our production team, thank you for your support. Sonia Bigelow-Smith, executive producer, along with Nicole Miles, our marketing specialist and designer, Renee Sanford, producer, and Graybo Solutions, who make it all, pull it all together. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.